Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey everyone, oh my goodness, I have an awesome guest for you today. Yes, so he is a Guinness World Record holder. And to top it all off, he has been on Channel 4. Yes, for all my US people out there, what am I talking about? So he's been on TV on Channel 4. Yes, like on TV shows, right? And so I knew I had to get him on this show, especially when we had so many mutual friends. I'm like, oh my goodness, who are you? Let's connect. Let's get you on my podcast. And so we're going to be talking about so many different things as to how he got on TV, how he's a Guinness World Record holder, how he's now a business coach. How does one person jump from one thing to another thing? And so, guys, please welcome Matt Hall to Make Your Mark podcast. Oh my goodness, Matt, I am super excited to have you here.
I'm loving your energy. This is my vibe. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, when you put it like that, it sounds like I've done a lot of mad things, which sums me up, I guess, quite well. So yeah, excited to dive in and speak more.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, right, of what it is that you're doing right now, please share with our audience today a little bit about your background. Like, how did you go from all these different careers to where you are right now in business? Because we all know it doesn't happen with a click of a finger.
Oh, definitely not. No, it's been a long journey at times. Let's put it that way. I mean, when I was at school, I never fit in. I was the typical, I guess, like a lot of entrepreneurs, where like academia didn't agree with me. So very early on, I had a bit of a love for performing, and my parents took me to like acting classes and things like that. So when I was 19, there was an opportunity where I thought I could start a business here. And it was because I was in a tribute band performing. And basically, we had a manager who none of us liked. He didn't treat us very well. But we all knew that we loved the job of like being able to perform every week and, you know, being paid to perform, really. So as a 19-year-old, I just sort of said to the lads in the band, I was like, look, if I can buy us some speakers and costumes and so on and basically set up a company to manage us, would you be happy to continue? Because we all wanted to leave him. And the lads were like, yeah, like they weren't interested in taking bookings or starting a business. They just wanted to gig and know that the person they worked for wasn't basically somebody that was in a bit of an arsehole, which he was. So that was it. So I'm there at 19. I've got no idea about business. I wasn't that stereotypical kid that, you know, you hear about it all the time online about selling lemonade, you know, on lemonade stands and all this as an 11-year-old. Like that was not me. I just wanted to do a bit of performing, bit of acting, and that was it. But I think one thing about me is I was always the sort of person that would take an opportunity and was willing to give it everything he's got and was willing to just learn through trying stuff. And that is really where the quote unquote entrepreneurial journey started for me. So at 19, I started this business managing us as a band and really relatively quickly sort of grew that to have multiple bands we were managing. And then we opened a bit of an agency to the point where that business is still going now. It's 15 years old this year. We have a full-time team of people that run it now. And we've got, I believe, close to 500 acts that we now represent through that agency. And, you know, we've had bookings worldwide. You know, we've had performances from bands in India and America and Germany and all over the place. So that became a business that it's like a real business. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm a business owner now. But what I would say is, for the first 7 or 8 years, it was really tough because I was performing in the band. I was traveling lots of miles. It was long days, late nights. And then throughout the week, because that was predominantly weekend work, but throughout the week, I was then building the business. You know, I was taking the bookings, I was marketing, and I was learning it all with no training or background. And back then, I know it sounds like I'm like 91 when I say this, but just like 15 years ago, you forget we didn't really have social media like we have it today. I didn't know of things like podcasts or online coaches and mentors or courses or anything like that. So it really was trial and predominantly error, lots of mistakes, hiring the wrong people,
Right.
making money, losing money, just lots of, I guess, learning through failure. And I know that's a cliche thing you hear a lot on podcasts, but when I reflect, really, it was a lot of getting it wrong. And it's through getting
Yeah.
it so wrong and being determined to evaluate and learn that kind of along the way I've picked up, I'd like to think now, um, a lot of how to do it the right way, which is what I do today now. And I now help people predominantly with online businesses. And
Mhm.
I try to steer them from my experience away from a lot of the failures and mistakes that I made along the way.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Again, so many more questions to ask now, right? So
Sorry.
you it's all good. It's all good. And so you kind of fell into this whole agency business because there was the manager wasn't really liking, wasn't getting on with. Um, did you ever have this feeling of, oh my goodness, what the hell am I doing? Like, am I on the right path? And if so, what kind of gave you that push to keep on going, especially when we didn't have as many resources as we do today, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I always just had a determination to figure it out. There were many, many times where I thought, is this really working? I thought I'm working 7 days a week. I am exhausted all the time. I used to just feel tired all the time. So I would say I actually used to just feel ill all the time. Um,
Wow.
and and I wasn't making that much money. A lot of the time, we were barely breaking even. I just had about enough money to pay everybody else and very
Yeah.
little. I mean, luckily for me in those early years, I was 19, 20. I was living at my parents, and thankfully I was, because it was so tough. But I always had, whether it's just a naivety or what, I just always believed that by not quitting, I will figure something out and we will turn it around. Um, and and I think you need that. I think people would call it maybe delusion, perhaps, maybe, but I think you just need this deep belief that even if it doesn't go how you thought it was going to go, and you don't maybe get the results that you thought you'd get, that you will learn through that, and through those lessons you'll figure out how to succeed in another way. And I think that's definitely what my journey was. I mean, I got to the point where I was about 27 years old. I'd been in a relationship with somebody who we split up, and we'd been together nearly 7 years, and she was the person that I thought I'd have children with and get married to and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of had, if I'm totally honest, I was 19 when I started that business, and I kind of had this naive idea that by the time I was 30, I'd be a
Mhm.
millionaire. I'd live in a big house. I'd be married with two or three children, and that was my impression of what me at 30 would look like. And here I was at 27, 28, a few years away from being 30. And I thought, I have a business that I'm just exhausted by. I'm barely breaking even. I'm struggling to make money. I wasn't
Right.
healthy. And suddenly, after being in a relationship nearly 7 years, I'm single and I've got to figure out what dating apps are because there weren't dating apps, when I got in that relationship. And now, as a nearly 30-year-old man, figuring out date, like, and truthfully, around that time, I had a really tough time. I mean, what I would consider maybe a bit of a breakdown. I remember having one of my first panic attacks, which I'd never experienced before, really struggling with my mental health. And really not wanting, not, I think what had happened is everything I thought would bring me success hadn't. I thought by working really hard, starting a business, all this kind of stuff, that I'd be successful. And it had turned out to be the exact opposite. I was now single, struggling to make money, and unhealthy and exhausted and nearly 30, and just like, I guess I had a complete like identity crisis. Like, who actually am I? And what should I
Yeah.
be doing? But what that did was it made me ask the question of what really is success, and
Mm.
how do we achieve it, and what's our own personal definition of success. Because I think I was chasing these metrics that we think are going to be success, and it hadn't
Right.
turned out like that, right? Which really is what then sort of led me down this path of learning about self-development. I then started my own podcast, in 2018, I think it was, which is my podcast, which I still have today, which is called Success School. And that's when I started learning more about the online world and about building a community online of other people that were interested in self development and maybe online businesses. And it just started this journey then of really trying to figure it out. And that podcast, still to this day, like the last question that I ask every guest that comes on the show is, what is your definition of success? And I think that's so
Mm.
key. And that's, again, learned from the experience of me maybe chasing other people's definition of it. I think it's so important that we all have that self awareness and we check in with ourselves and we just ask, is the life we're living, is the path that we're on, the decisions we're making, are they aligned with what our definition of success is, not somebody else's? And that's kind of like where it sort of led me to.
I love that. I love that. So, as I was growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to be. Right? Actually, scratch that. I did when I was younger. I wanted to either be a Marvel superhero, right, or be like the fifth Ninja Turtle, right? I was like,
Love
I've got
it.
plan A, plan B. It can't go wrong, right? And it did.
How
Right?
old were you? Is this when you were like 25? You still wanted to be a Ninja Turtle?
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully a
No,
bit
so
younger.
like, oh, it was when I was much younger, then found out, okay, none of this is real. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been lied to my entire life. What the hell is this, right?
Yeah.
And so for years and years, I was like, okay, so what do I want to be? What do I like? I went to college, I went to uni, but I struggled with, well, what course am I going to study if I don't know what I want to be, right?
Mm.
And it was one of those things where if you're a parent, you're going to hate this. I literally like went to the college computers and whatever my finger landed on is what I studied. Right? It
Oh,
was one of those.
wow.
It's like, what, like, how do you work that out? Right? And it's one of those things where I found out, like, you know what? You don't need to have it all mapped out. You don't need to have it all planned. Right? Like, that's what life is meant to be, especially when you're young. You're meant to figure it all out. And it doesn't matter if you mess up. And so I went from job to job to job. Like, I was an MMA fighter, I was a hairdresser, I was a dermatologist, I did nails, right? Like, then I was a police officer, and like, then I did sign language interpreting. I went from job to job to job to job just to figure out what the hell do I want to be. And it ended up becoming a podcaster. And now have a Make Your Mark podcast agency. So I hear what you're saying. I totally agree with
Mm.
success. You got to define it yourself. You can't map out the way everybody else expects you to be, right? Especially coming from an Indian background, like you've got to be a doctor, a lawyer, right, an accountant, one of those three. And I was like, no, I want to be a podcaster. Like, what the hell are you doing? Right? So I hear you, and you got to follow that dream.
Well, there's a phrase that I say a lot to people, which is learn through doing. And I think the reason that I say that, like a bit of a joke that I talk about is, are you doing self development or are you doing shelf development? And it's that kind of bit of a play on the words about, are you just buying more books and reading more
Yeah.
books, doing more courses about what you should be doing? Whereas actually, the best way to figure out who you truly are and what you truly want to be doing with your life, I believe, is through experience of trying stuff and giving it a go. And I think you're a perfect example of that. It sounds like you tried just about everything going by the sounds of it. But I think it's true. I think in order to really feel that true sense of alignment, there is no better way to get there than trying different stuff. And I think, to some degree, everybody's different and we're all on our own path. And not everybody maybe needs to do as much as, say, for example, you did. But I do think so. For example, if I think back to being in that relationship at 26, 27, just before it ended, I did have some resentment that I was in my early 20s when most people went to uni and were performing. I was just
Mm,
building this business. I was working weekends as a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, whatever. I was in one relationship. I didn't get to like have that experience that a lot of young people have where they play the field a little bit. Um,
yeah.
and I did have like, again, I was following this path of what I thought was success, which is be in a committed relationship, build something substantial. And I think that contributed to part of when that person I split up. I did then turn to then partying a lot and totally having an identity crisis because I think there was that thing of I'd just been so focused on one thing that I needed to try other stuff and have different experiences in my life to really enrich it and then to pull it all apart and go, right, now I've tried all this different stuff. What do I really want? And I think that was around that time was the beginning of really figuring that out.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So let's get to the part of how did you become the Channel 4 person? Like, how did that all come about and get on TV? And was it something you were striving for, or was it something you just kind of fell into?
No, I wasn't striving for it at all, actually. So, if we rewind to, like I say, when I was a teenager, back then I wanted to be a performer and I did bits of TV acting. So, I got a few jobs when I was like, I think probably 16, something like that.
Okay.
People may remember TV shows over here, such as Heartbeat. I was in that, and The Royal, and I was in like a three-part drama called Unforgiven. So, I got like a few jobs when I was in my teens when I was
Okay.
pursuing that career. But I kind of, when I started my business at 19, I very quickly
Mm.
became all in on my business and wasn't interested in the sort of TV stuff. But I think it's interesting about this speaks to the power of building a personal brand because, whilst building my businesses, I was really focused on building my personal brand. And as I say, then starting a podcast, and that helped with building my personal brand. So yeah, this is probably I don't know, maybe 2021, something like that. I just got a direct message on Instagram from some producers on a show called Steph's Packed Lunch, which was on Channel 4, and they just basically said we've got these sort of positions for what they called lunchmates, and it was basically like a glorified audience member where throughout the show um the main host, the main panel would then come to these. I think there was about six of us at the time, and I think it grew to be bigger towards the end. But there were six of us that they'd come to you for your opinions on whether it be the daily topics on the news or there was like an entertainment section. So it was this regular kind of position where you just got to do a bit of live telly, meet some cool people. Um, and it was just a great place for networking and a bit of exposure, really, that I just did as a bit of extra sort of fun and networking. But
Yeah.
then I also got a direct message, then probably about a year into that, asking if I would audition for a new reality TV show. And
Okay.
it was a dating show. And at the time, I just thought, well, I kind of felt like I was enjoying what I was doing with my business and it was relatively successful. And I just thought this just sounds like a new challenge, like it's just something different. And I was single, and the way that they pitched it to me was a little bit not kind of genuine because they said it would be a wholesome dating show. It wouldn't be like these toxic ones and all the rest of it. And the way they pitched the concept were just, we're going to match you with somebody who on paper is your ideal type and they're yours, and vice versa, and you're going to go on a sort of blind date with each other. And then immediately after you've had that first date, you're going to live together. And it's going to be a bit of a social experiment just to see, like, does that amplify the dating process or like how does it work? And I just thought, okay, that sounds bonkers, but it's a challenge. It's fun. It's an opportunity. Let's just go with it. What I
Right.
didn't know, because they told us the show's working title was called Love Match, but what I didn't know
Okay.
is actually it was by the same producers of Married at First Sight. So if anybody knows that show, it's quite a
Yes.
drama
Big fan.
filled,
Yes.
high, yeah, yeah, and it was by the same producers, and it was actually called Love Triangle, and we were going to be in a triangle, and it was all that kind of thing. So it wasn't something I went looking for. No, the producers just came to me, and I took the opportunity, and it wasn't what I expected it to be. But once again, another experience with lots of lessons learned is how I would summarize that now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I guess what is the biggest things that you have learned when it has been like going on TV, right? And like producers kind of reaching out to you. What are some of the key things that you learned about that? Because it can be ruthless. Is that right?
Yeah, it is ruthless.
Mm.
I think you've got to really know yourself because and I've spoke to a few people that have done similar TV shows to me, that even if you feel quite a confident person and self-assured person, when you put yourself in an environment like that, it can be really taxing on your mental health. And it was for me. I really struggled. I think it was something I was least confident in anyway is my dating life. Like that's the thing. I probably, if I was to say like the area I feel most insecure, it's probably dating. But to do that on TV with people watching you, and then to be given these twists and turns of they're going to bring another guy in and you're going to be fighting for the girl, it was really tough. And I think people don't always really understand that when they watch TV. They don't realize that you're filming every day for a month or months on end with
Yeah.
no access to your friends and your family and the people that know you and love you and that you can speak to, with no access to like the internet and social media, with no, you're not working or going to your job, you're just completely
Mm.
100% consumed by that environment 24 hours a day, every day. And you don't know day by day what they're going to throw at you next and what you're going to be expected to do. And it was this constant feeling of living in anxiety daily, and you know that everything they're going to chuck at you is to try and make good TV, and potentially millions of people might watch it and judge you. So to live like that daily, 7 days a week, is mentally really tough. And I think that's one thing I would say to anybody that's considering a show like that is you might have a perception of how it would be and how you would
Right.
handle it. But my advice would be just be mindful that it probably could be way harder than you imagine it to be.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we wouldn't normally think about that. Like, oh my goodness, you don't have access to the outside world, right? It literally is just you on this TV show, consumed by your environment, and you got no one else to talk to. And yeah, doing that for about a month or even longer, like that is insane, right?
Yeah.
So when you kind of finish the show, right, you must have been relieved, right? Did you have to go and talk to anybody or talk to family, like what was going on? Like, what happened after that? What was the aftermath?
So I remember after we finished filming, they drove me back home from Manchester, back home to Bradford, and I went and saw my parents, and I said to them at the time, is I've always been this kind of person who's just like, you learn from every experience. And for that reason, I don't believe in having regrets. It's just lessons and experiences. But I remember that evening sitting with them and saying, I think this will be something I regret. I think this is something that I could live
Really?
to regret. And yeah, and because I just felt like it had been really tough. I felt like I'd probably not been the best version of myself because I'd struggled so much and I'd had such a
Mm.
crap time doing it. And I also knew that you're not in control of the edit and they're going to try and make it the most exciting
Oh
TV
God.
show they can, which means sometimes they have to do certain things to heighten it, heighten what really happened. And I was genuinely nervous, and we had to wait because it was a brand new show. There's now been two series of it, but at the time we'd never seen, like a lot of shows now. If you was to go on Big Brother or Love Island or
Right.
whatever, you kind of know what the edit looks like. Well, we
Yeah.
didn't, and we actually had to wait a whole year from finishing filming until they actually aired it. So
Oh no way.
yeah, right. So that's a long time when you've got no idea how successful the show is going to be, how many people are going to watch it, how you're going to be portrayed, all that stuff. So I was really nervous. Thankfully, the edit was a relatively true reflection on what happened. And
Okay.
I mean, anybody that has ever come up to me in the street or anybody that recognizes me from the show that's actually spoken to me has only ever sort of said lovely things. And that, like, a common thing is like everyone needs a Matt in your life. A few people have said that to me,
Oh.
and you're such a lovely guy. And it's been really nice to know that when I was at my most vulnerable and struggling the most, that still the
Mm.
feedback is like, I could tell you as a nice guy or whatever. Because there was a
Oh.
point in the show where my like integrity was brought into question. And even though you know that you've been honest and you've told the truth, you don't know how it's going to look to the public, and they don't know, right? Because they don't know you. And I think from the feedback I've had, people were pretty clear that they could tell I was a good guy and all the rest of it. So it was a
Yeah.
sigh of relief when it came out and, getting the feedback, but still like really tough to watch back and relive a year later and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness. See, I think when it comes to like people wanting to be on TV, they just see the glamorous side of it. Your hair, your makeup, everyone's going to know you, you're famous, right? So now everybody knows you. You've been on TV. Everyone knows you. How do you handle that fame? Like walking down the street, people recognizing you. Um, like what does that even look like for you now?
Well, let me just give a true insight. Not everybody
Oh.
knows me, right? It's not like I'm not like Bono from U2. Like it's not quite the same. And I think that's an interesting thing in itself. I think our perception of TV is maybe not quite as up to date as it is right now. I think with things like YouTube and the online streaming and social media and TikTok, that actually there's people that are way more known just from being a YouTuber or a TikToker than there are now
Right.
people from reality TV shows, because the world's just shifted so much, right? So I think if you were on a TV show like what I was on 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be a totally different thing. I actually
Yeah.
interviewed Craig, who was the very first winner of Big Brother in the UK, right back in,
Okay.
was it like the late 90s or early noughties, I think it was.
Yeah. Do you
And
know
he,
what? That series, my English teacher was in it. She was the first one to get kicked out of Big Brother.
no, the very first
Yeah.
series. Right. Okay. Wow. So, I mean, Craig spoke about the minute that he won that episode, that series, they put him in a
Mm.
room. They told him what was going to happen. They said, you'll be on every single newspaper, the front cover of every magazine. And I think it was something like, I don't want to misquote it. I know it's not accurate, but it was something like he spent like 90 days where he didn't go home from the minute he left the Big Brother house to then promoting. It was like a constant tour promoting and doing
Right.
media. So when you think of that to now, it's an entirely different thing. So no, it's not like I get recognized everywhere. I mean, I still do. Like I actually went on a first date with somebody a few months ago, and as soon I just met her and we went to the bar, and straight away there was this drunk couple who went, "Oh my God, I know you." And they were like, "You were on the Traitors." I was like, "I wasn't. I wasn't." They're like, "No, the other one, Love Triangle." And this was the beginning of me starting a date with a girl. I was like, "I'm so sorry." So, like, it does happen. People do, notice it, but it's not like you can't go anywhere in the street and people are lining up for
Right.
autographs or anything like that. But it's, I overall, it's been a positive experience. Most people have been lovely.
Mhm.
And it's coming back to everything we've covered really so far. It's all just you make of it what you do, right? And there was some tough stuff. It's not all been pleasant, but you take the positives and you try and learn from the lessons and make the best of it.
Absolutely. Oh, I love this. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more about you being the Guinness World Record holder, right? First of all, record holder in what? And how did that then happen?
Well, the annoying thing is, I think we need to update it because it's world record breaker, but not the current
Oh,
holder, and I'm
okay.
fuming about it because we held the record for a good few years. So
Okay.
this is so basically when I think we'd a year from us launching our podcast. At the time, I said, right, it's been 1 year. Let's mark it by doing something cool, and I just had this idea of
Okay.
why don't we try and go for a world record that nobody's done, and the world record that we went for is the longest live audio only stream, which basically means we just
Cool.
did a non-stop podcast.
Yeah.
And the record that we brought, I think at the time it was like 50 hours, something like that, and we did just over 53 hours, I think it was,
Okay.
non-stop podcasting. So yeah, that was quite the experience. We started at 8 a.m. on the Friday, and that's like started recording, but obviously you get up, you get dressed, you drive to the studio.
Right.
So we'd been up from maybe 6:30 or whatever. Um, you officially start the record attempt at 8 a.m. and then you just keep going. And you're not allowed, the rules were you weren't allowed any longer than 5 seconds dead air time or you'd be disqualified.
Okay.
So yeah, we just kept going all through Friday, all through Friday night, through the early hours Saturday, then all of Saturday, all Saturday night, all Sunday up until I think like Sunday afternoon.
Oh,
And then we got the official, yep, Guinness World Record holders, and I think we held that title for a good few years. And I've looked recently, and I think somebody else in Australia has since broken it. In like maybe 2023, 24, like literally in the last year or two.
right.
But again, amazing experience. We raised thousands of pounds for charity, and just it was
Okay.
a great opportunity to push ourselves.
Wow. Okay. Now, what did that even look like? Did you have like several people coming on speaking, or was it you and your team? Like, what did that even look like? How would you set something like that even up?
So at the time, it was me and my cousin that were the hosts. So we were on pretty much the whole time. We had moments where it was
Wow.
just me and him. And then we had a lineup of probably about over the 3 days, probably about 30 guests that joined us at different times, for an hour here, an hour there. One of my friends, big shout out to Ross. I think in total, I think he did two stints, and in total he did about 6, 7 hours himself. He's like, surely I get some of the record. He was like, just from like, because he dialed in, I think, for 3 hours on one occasion and a few hours on another. He was brilliant and really helped us. But you have to have constantly, I don't know what the official term is, whether it's like adjudicators or something like that, but you constantly have to have people there present,
Right.
and sort of people helping out. So it really was a big team effort. You don't do something like that just as an idea on your own. You do need people on board, volunteers, people helping out. But we did, and we were really lucky to have so many people help us. And as I say, I think in the end, we raised just short of £5,000 for some charities.
Amazing.
And yeah, we did it. We got the Guinness World Record.
Wow. Well done to you on that and your team. That's amazing. You're going to be doing another one like that.
Everybody always says this. So I'd love to actually. I would be up for it. And it literally is now just based on how much. So I already know up until about next July, everything we're launching in my business and everything we're doing. I've just finished the first draft of writing my first book, and I know when that's likely to be coming out. So really, it is just a thing of trying to figure out when we would have the time and the resources to pull
Right.
something like it
Yeah.
off again. But in terms of the actual challenge, I
Hmm.
would definitely be up for taking the crown back, 100%.
Absolutely. I would be exactly the same. Like, who? Wait, I got knocked off? No way. We're doing this
Not
again.
on. Yeah, exactly that. And I do feel that a bit of we've got to sort that out. So maybe one day, yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. Now let's talk about a little bit about the business that you're doing right now, right? You're a business strategist. So what does that look like? Because at the moment we've got so many different business strategists out there, but what does that look like for you and how do you work with your clients?
So I'm currently being mentored by our mutual friend Lisa Johnson, who is just the most incredible person. And I
Hmm.
think her success has really been, or one of the reasons has been around helping people have a business model that works for them in their life. So one of her courses is called One to Many, and it's that idea of not constantly trading time for money. And that's kind of always been the thread for the business model I speak about. I always say simplicity scales, complexity fails. So that's kind of the general model that I try and encourage people and share with people is let's find. I mean, I've always said business is relatively simple when you understand it. It's people that make it complex. It's emotion, it's fear of judgment, it's these, shiny penny syndrome and trying to do too much at the same time. So a lot of what I teach and preach and live by is simplicity and trying to find a business model that works for you in your life and doesn't mean that even if you're financially doing well, doesn't mean that from a lifestyle perspective that you're also burnt out working all hours and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my methodology. And again, it's very in alignment with Lisa, who's mentoring me and what she teaches. And, she's had incredible success. I think she went from being £35,000 in debt to doing over 22 million in the last 7 years, which is incredible. And what an honor to be learning from someone like that, right? So it's great.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I have multiple ways of working with me. I do have some clients that I work with one to one, but not many, and I'm currently not taking on any. Partly because of practicing what I preach. If I did do that, I'd end up just being really busy again, which is not the right way of doing it. I have one main online course that I launch once a year, which will be relaunched in February. And I also have a membership, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. We have just the best community. At present, we've got nearly 200 people in the membership. Um,
Amazing.
and I'm just trying to make it as value packed as I can because I think like a lot of memberships have like guest speakers and things like that, which we do have. But I've really thought about what do people need, and what they actually need is space to think. They need space to ask questions. They need time to reflect and plan. So we've just been trialing a few new things that have been like the feedback's been amazing, where we do like accountability implementation sessions where it's not about learning new stuff all the time or having guest speakers come on all the time. There's actually
Right.
sessions where we can just come together as a community and just work through and help each other work through what we're doing. So I'm finding that is really great. And it's just honestly some of the best people in that membership. And I actually feel honored to be part of it, even though it's my membership, like because of the community and the people, it's great. So
Right.
so that's really, really good. We do a live event every year as well. So at the time of
Okay.
recording, our next one is literally a few weeks away. It's on Sunday, the 5th of October, and that's going to be live in Leeds at the city centre Hilton Hotel, just by the train station. So it's really easy kind of to get to location wise. We've got Levi Roots, who's the headline speaker, which I'm so excited to have him there. We've also got Grace Andrews, who was the marketing director for Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO and Flight Story. And she literally worked alongside him from those early days to build it to be the empire that it
Wow.
is today. So I'm so excited that she's going to be speaking there. And it's a great opportunity to have fun, network, as well as the learning and the connecting and stuff like that. Because with my background being performing and live events, I don't just want to put on an event that's just like everybody's just sat and just learning and listening. I come out with the good vibes. We get some music pumped up every now and then. We have a bit of fun. And I think probably the live events, although they're the hardest work and
Mhm.
generally the least profitable, they're probably the thing that I enjoy doing the most. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, no, we have a podcast networking membership, and that is my favorite. Like when we get on every 2 weeks and we kind of, battle as to what kind of challenges people are having. Is it getting on
Yeah.
podcasts? Is it launching a pod? Like that's the most fun to the point. I
Mhm.
decided that I'm gonna like not do my group coaching program anymore because I'm having so much fun in this membership and just putting everything all into this, right? So yeah, I totally hear you. Like when you're having fun in business and you're loving the people you work with, like that's all you want to do.
Oh, it's yeah. I mean, because I was speaking to a friend the other day on a podcast and saying, like, do you think we're actually obsessed with our business and to the point of it being unhealthy? And we both agreed, like, yeah, like we
Yeah.
actually are. We probably, because we definitely don't need to work as much as we do, like
Mm,
financially, but there is a very real cost to that in terms of our personal lives could be more enriched, let's say. But
yeah.
I just love what I'm doing at the moment. And that might change and I might evolve with it. But it genuinely is. I'm around amazing people. I'm seeing like great impact with people and the progress they're making and how grateful they are. And it is really like the most incredible drug when you have a business, when it's
Right.
working
Yeah,
and you're seeing results. It is quite addictive.
it
So,
is. And the thing is, I feel like you should be obsessed with your business. If you're not, then that's where something's going wrong. If you're not enjoying being in business and getting up and, it's the first thing I think about and the last thing I think about when I go to bed, right?
Well, let's
So
think about it. I mean, like, at the time of recording, we're literally on a bank holiday Monday. Like most people
I
wouldn't
know
be doing this, right?
it's great.
So that tells you something about us, I guess.
Yes, for sure. Do you know what? It's funny because I even forgot it was Bank Holiday Monday
Me too.
today, right?
Me too.
Like
Yeah.
totally forgot. Still got clients, and the thing is, most of my clients are all US based. My audience are US based,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So I totally forget about that. I remember all the US bank holidays, but the UK ones I totally forget, right?
Yeah.
So we're on here, we're doing it, we're rocking and rolling. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, okay, you've done so many different things, right? How did you then decide, oh my goodness, I want to be a business strategist? Like, how did that even come about after everything that you've done?
It was a very natural progression. So I'd started the podcast that was very much focused on self development, mindset, understanding what success is. And obviously, part of that was financial and business and things like that. And very early on, I then went down the route of learning how to become a coach myself and like getting qualified and things like that. So initially, I was just generally a bit of a like mindset, self development, and a bit of business thrown in kind of coach. And over the years, as it grew, I was like, the people, how you get told quite often, pick a niche and have an ideal client avatar and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Well, I actually went against that. And
Hmm.
I was one of those people preaching, you don't need that. Like, I don't put me in a box and all this kind of stuff. And actually, over time, number one, I started to realize it's definitely hindering my growth because people don't pay top money for a generalist, they pay it for a specialist. I think my messaging wasn't as clear because I was trying to speak to everybody and everybody and anybody instead of being more specific and clear. But also, I just started to realize the thing that I love the most is when I've got a client I'm working with and they're either in business or thinking of starting a business. They were the people when I was working with them that I was lighting up the most to work with, and I was seeing the results the most. So it's almost like I didn't start out following the advice of niching down and ideal client avatars, but it's almost like the ideal client found me. And then
Mm.
eventually I just leaned into that and I thought, I've now got to again follow my own advice, which is simplify. And what I always say is do less better. And what I mean by that is rather than doing lots of stuff average, do one or two things outstanding. And so that's where I just started to then reposition myself as being predominantly just focused on business and in particular online business. And that is where my business just then skyrocketed. I mean, the last year has been by far our most successful. And it really is. It's like one of those pieces of advice that if I could give people, when I think back a few years ago, it's the advice I ignored, but it really is true that niching down and being more of a specialist and all that kind of stuff really does make the difference. And now I just feel so aligned. I'm genuinely working with some of the best clients, and I know that's something people say on podcasts, and it just sounds like it's not genuine. But I'm really like, I honestly feel so happy and so grateful, and I'm so excited for the things people are building and the way that they're growing them. This is just my thing, man. This is just what lights me up. It's the thing that means I don't have to work 7 days a week, but I bloody choose to because I'm like, it's the thing I want to be doing right now. Again, that will change, I'm sure. But right now, I'm just in a season of momentum, gratitude, excitement, and we're just doing some great stuff.
Oh, amazing. I love it. Oh my goodness, Matt. I know at this point people are thinking, okay, how the hell do I get connected with Matt? Like, where do I go and find out more about what he does? So, where can they go to connect?
So my website is matthallofficial.com, and that's got everything on there. And my podcasts, how to work with me is all on matthallofficial.com. And if they want to connect with me on social media, the main platform would be Instagram. I know that's where we've connected. So again, if they just type in at Matt Hall Official, drop me a follow. And I always do say, like, if you've found some of this conversation interesting or whatever, please do like drop me a follow and drop me a DM, because I think quite often we get used to just listening to podcasts and just one guest after another, and we forget that these
Right.
are real people to actually connect with, where there might be some synergy, there might be collaboration opportunities, there might be ways to work together. So if there is something in this conversation, I guess, that you've heard where you think, actually, I think there might be something I can do with Matt, please do follow me. But more importantly, drop me a message. Let me know that you listen to this amazing podcast, and it'd be good to have a chat.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Guys, go and connect with Matt. Go and find out what he does. Talking about on social media. Do it, right? That's what I've been doing. And find out what else he's been doing, because up to all sorts of things. Matt, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. So many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure, Kay. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.